The pain of not even noticing that your mic wasn't down. Anyways, good evening. Welcome, peepers. This is Jeepers, and Spooky Town is upon us. Let's get right to it then, shall we? The Eye. As I sit here, gazing at the abomination staring back at me, I start to think back to the day it all began. It started out as any other normal day would have, and how I wish it stayed. I woke up, late for work again, and I decided to go ahead and continue my morning routine of going to the store, getting an energy drink, and checking the mail. I sat down at my computer, as I work from home, but I couldn't bring myself to even start. Something was off. I felt numb. I went day in and day out doing the same things, a mind-numbing routine. My team and I would sit in calls complaining about the direction our company was headed, knowing damn well that we had no control over changing it. So I decided to instead take a few extra minutes to go grab a quick bite to eat. But when I stepped outside and approached my car, it happened. The sky turned a mysterious shade of green, and a rumbling began. Not like an earthquake, or the sound of a train going by, but a genuine disturbance in the atmosphere around me. I could feel the air rumbling. As I stared at the sky, a crack began to appear as if from some plane of existence beyond our own. The open air had physical cracks in it. I distinctly remember the pit of my stomach feeling like it was trying to fall out the back end of me. And then it appeared. The cracks began to widen, and an eye appeared. In case you've somehow not seen this yet, let me describe it for you. It appeared in the sky, 3 times larger than the sun, and was centered clearly in the uppermost levels of the atmosphere, or beyond it, as it was shrouded by the overcast clouds that was separating it from me. Its iris was a toxic shade of green, and it had a pupil that was similar to a goat's. You know, that flat rounded line. What would typically be the white of the eye was so bloodshot in appearance that one would assume it was naturally red in color. Ironically, the thing that stood out to me the most, as the most unsettling feature, was the fact that it never blinked. Not once did I see it blink. What came next was the thing of nightmares. People. Panic. It's a powerful thing that can never be underestimated in its ability to create monsters of men. Before we get ahead of ourselves, let me tell you how quickly society descended into madness. As I stood there, staring at this monstrosity that almost appeared as though it was focused on me, I called my parents. "Hey, Mom, have you stepped outside today?" My mom replied, "Honey, of course I've seen it. It's all over the news." After making sure they weren't in a state of utter panic, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I proceeded to drive into town. To put this into perspective, I live in a small town, rural area of about 350 people. However, there's a larger city only like 7 miles north of me. As I began to leave, I noticed things were quiet in my neck of the woods. People were all outside, gazing into the sky the same as I was. But honestly, I was still hungry. I went to the local dollar store, and it was empty. In hindsight, I assumed whoever was working there probably left to be with their loved ones. So yes, I stole a protein bar, another energy drink, and a bag of chips. I don't think it really mattered at this point. Well, curiosity got the better of me, and that brings us to the chaos of man. I drove to the previously mentioned larger town, and it was like the apocalypse had already happened. There were buildings on fire, bodies beside the street, looting, the works. Keep in mind, all that I had done up to this point was appear. Nothing else. After seeing more than enough of the downfall of society, I turned around to head back home. That's when I got a first-person taste of how awful people can be when they panic. As I exited from the highway to hit the overpass, and exited back southbound, I saw a car on the side of the road with a somber-looking man sitting next to it. I rolled down my car's window and asked if he was okay. He stood up and began walking towards the car. His eyes, I'll never forget, his eyes were more terrifying than that looming monstrosity above. By the time I had noticed and decided to act, it was too late. He got to the window and proceeded to reach inside and grab me by the throat. Out of sheer panic, I slammed the gas, but he didn't relent. He just screamed, "Nothing is okay. The world is doomed. We're all doomed." Eventually, his grasp slipped and he hit the pavement with a thud. I don't know if he survived, but considering I was going 55 miles per hour by the time he finally loosened his grip, I'd assume he didn't. I got home and flipped on the news to discover my small neck of the woods had nothing going on compared to what was happening on a global scale. Death tolls were already estimated to be in the millions. Between the killings, suicides, the accidents caused in the panic, humanity was tearing itself apart. There were places that hadn't even seen it yet because it never left its spot in the sky. Right above me. Staring at me. That didn't stop people from losing their shit, though. Some claimed it was the apocalypse, or the end of the world. Others claimed it was God coming to take us home. Even, outer gods of Lovecraftian lore. I didn't know what to think. All I knew was that the numbness never subsided, almost as if my brain was fried at the lack of comprehension to what was going on. Then, the strangest thing happened. Nightfall. As the sun began to set, I stared unrelentingly at the eye. I mean, how could I not? It was staring directly at me wherever I went. The longer I looked, the more uneasy I felt. Once the sun finally set, you could still see it. Although it was just a perfectly round black silhouette blocking the stars and the moon. Just a solid black discus in the sky. I did my best to try and fall asleep, but that simply wasn't going to happen. Instead, I lie awake in bed, and that was when my mind began to try rationalizing what was going on. Why was I unusually calm given the circumstances? Why was it directly above me? Why was it staring at me? And lastly, why did it never blink? All of a sudden, a shift in the air happened, a noticeable change in atmosphere, almost as if a weight had been lifted. I looked at the clock and it read 8:34 a.m. Had I really been awake all night? I stepped outside to notice the sky was still green, but the eye had vanished. At that point, only two thoughts crossed my mind. The first was obviously, where the hell did it go? And the second, I'm ashamed to admit, was, shit, I should have taken a picture. I could have at least tried to prove that it was staring at me, but alas, that moment's already passed. I flipped over to the news to discover the world was in absolute shambles. I guess living in a tiny area like mine's has its advantages. I drove to my parents' place to check up on them and make sure they were still okay. My phone was dead, so I couldn't call. Luckily, the worst of it for them was just being shaken up by the whole ordeal, but they'll live. It's been 6 months since that day that the eye appeared. Life has changed drastically. Power grids took a lot of damage, ironically from people. There were some residual issues after the eye disappeared. The day the eye vanished, cell towers The internet, electronics, everything went down. We still haven't gotten that back yet. Luckily, the TV stations are still up and running, but not if you were running a satellite. People have begun to adapt and adjust. The wounds are still there. The scars will never fully heal. However, it would seem that in the end, humanity was its own greatest enemy. Humanity caused its own downfall. I don't know what became of the eye, but as I've been telling this story, I can feel the air get heavy. Almost as if I can feel the rumble. Ah, yes, Lovecraftian horrors and eldritch abominations are the most intriguing to me. I mean, almost as interesting as actually seeing the face of God. See, Jesus, he's a man, a mortal. But if God did exist, are we really sure that we can handle seeing him? If it's even a him. If they even appear human. I mean, their being of pure light energy. I mean, I'd like to think of them as a weird amalgamated being who hides themselves behind the light. I'm rambling again. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this story. My back aches, and I hope you will all come back for more stupid puns. Mutilate that like button, yada yada. Stay safe, peepers. Jeepers is off. Peace.